"This handmade gift looks so cheap," said my granddaughter. Everyone laughed. Next morning, I sold the beach house, where she'd already sent wedding invitations. Sometimes the cruelest wounds come from those we love most. I never thought my own family would see me as disposable until that moment when laughter replaced gratitude. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. My story isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming what was always mine: dignity. I spent 3 weeks crafting those small knitted dolls, my arthritic fingers working long past the point of pain. Inside one of them, nestled where no casual observer would find it, I'd hidden my grandmother's diamond, the one my late husband James had reset for our 50th anniversary, the same diamond Amber had been hinting about for months. When I arrived at my granddaughter's birthday party in her Beacon Hill townhouse, the doorman didn't recognize me. I had to show ID to enter a home I'd helped finance. That should have been my first warning. "Grandma Eleanor's here," announced my son Richard without looking up from his phone. His voice carried the same tone he used when noting the weather might turn stormy, mild inconvenience wrapped in obligation. The room smelled of expensive perfume and pretension, designer clothes, strategic networking, champagne flutes that never emptied. I clutched my small gift, wrapped in paper I'd carefully selected from the stationery store where Amber had worked during college. Back then, she'd proudly shown me her employee discount. "Time for presents." Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, clinked her glass. "Amber, darling, start with the small ones." My granddaughter's eyes locked on the tiny package in my hands. I stepped forward, offering it with a smile I'd practiced in the mirror that morning. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." She took it with manicured fingertips, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light. A gift from Logan, her fiancé, who watched from across the room with the detached interest of someone evaluating a potential investment. The room hushed as she peeled back the paper. Inside the box were 2 knitted figures, painstakingly created to resemble Amber and Logan on their upcoming wedding day. Amber lifted them with 2 fingers, holding them away from her cream-colored dress as though they might stain it. "This handmade gift looks so cheap," she declared, her voice carrying across the silent room. Then she laughed, a practiced, tinkling sound. "Grandma, you know we have a registry at Neiman Marcus, right?" Logan snickered. "Perfect for the donation pile." The room erupted in laughter, Richard's too loud bark, Vanessa's tittering, Logan's friends' snorts. My cheeks burned as though I'd been slapped. I began, wanting to explain about the diamond hidden inside, the hours of work, the meaning behind it. "Mother, perhaps we should talk about getting you some help with your finances," Richard interrupted, placing his hand on my shoulder. "These little crafts show you might have too much time on your hands." I looked around the room, seeking a single sympathetic face. My grandson Thomas, standing in the corner with his camera, met my eyes with quiet apology. That small kindness nearly broke me. I left early, the sound of laughter following me out. At home, illuminated by the harsh blue light of my computer screen, I found an email from Amber with wedding vendor contracts for my signature and payment. The venue? My beloved Cape Cod beach house, the one James and I had purchased 40 years ago, the one where I'd scattered his ashes. "We've already sent the invitations," her message declared. "The designer starts renovations next month. Your old furniture will need to go." My hands trembled as I closed my laptop. For the first time in decades, I felt something calcify inside me, a hardening where softness had always lived. The morning after Amber's party, I woke to a text from Richard. "Mom, found a wonderful retirement community in Brookline. Made an appointment for us next week, just to look." I deleted it without responding. Through my bedroom window, I could see the Boston skyline, buildings glinting in the May sunshine. How many decisions had been made in those towers that altered people's lives without their consent? Was I now just another elderly statistic to be managed? My beach house keys sat on my nightstand. I grabbed them and my purse, suddenly desperate to see the property before the renovations began. The drive to Cape Cod took longer than usual. My hands gripped the steering wheel with unnecessary force, making my arthritic joints scream in protest. When I arrived, there was already a strange car in the driveway, a sleek black SUV I didn't recognize. Pushing open the front door, I heard voices from the great room. "The wall between the kitchen and dining area can definitely come down," a woman was saying. "Mrs. Thompson won't mind. She's barely here anyway." I stepped into the doorway. Amber, Vanessa, and a stylish woman with an electronic tablet were standing in my kitchen. My kitchen, where I'd taught Amber to make James's favorite clam chowder when she was 9. "Actually, I do mind," I said quietly. They spun around, Vanessa recovering first. "Eleanor, what a lovely surprise. We were just discussing some small updates for the wedding." Taking down a weight-bearing wall is hardly a small update. I set my purse on the counter. "Who approved these changes?" Amber stepped forward, all honey and concern. "Grandma, we talked about this. Remember? Last Christmas? You said we could use the house and make it perfect for the ceremony." "I said you could use it. I never agreed to demolition." "It's not demolition, it's modernization," the designer interjected, as if I were a child who couldn't grasp basic concepts. "The property has wonderful bones, but the aesthetic is rather dated." I walked to the living room window, gazing out at the Atlantic. James and I had saved for 10 years to afford this view. The designer followed, flipping through images on her tablet. "We're thinking white everywhere. Walls, furniture, fixtures. Clean, minimal, Instagram ready." On the mantel, I noticed the photo of James and me on our 40th anniversary was missing. In its place sat a mood board labeled Hamptons Chic. "Where's my photograph?" I asked. Vanessa glanced around vaguely. "Oh, we've carefully packed some of the more personal items for safekeeping during renovations." That night, after they left, I searched the house. In the garage, I found 3 boxes labeled Eleanor's Things. Inside was the photograph, along with James's books, our anniversary album, and the small knitted dolls from Amber's party, tossed in without care, the diamond still hidden inside. My phone rang. It was Richard. "Mom, about that retirement community tour." "I can't talk now, Richard. It's important we start planning for your future. The fees have quite a waiting list. Vanessa and I were thinking, since the beach house will mostly be used for family events anyway, it might make sense to transfer it to a family trust, just for tax purposes, of course." His voice was smooth, rehearsed. I recognized the tone. He used it in court when leading a witness toward a predetermined conclusion. "I need to go," I said. As I hung up, I noticed a brochure on my kitchen table that hadn't been there that morning. "Seaside Retirement Living, where independence meets assistance." Someone had circled a floor plan in red marker with a note in Vanessa's handwriting. Perfect for Mom. They were already dividing my life into pieces, I realized, and I had been letting them. "Your blood pressure is concerning." "Eleanor," Dr. Matthews said, studying my chart through wire-rimmed glasses, "it's significantly elevated since your last visit. Any unusual stress lately?" I almost laughed. Where would I begin? With my granddaughter publicly humiliating me? My son plotting to control my assets? The strangers redecorating my home without permission? "Some family tension," I said instead. Dr. Matthews removed his stethoscope. "At your age, with your history, stress isn't just uncomfortable. It's dangerous. I've seen patients your age hospitalized after family conflicts triggered cardiac events." His words hung between us. I'd survived James's death, breast cancer in my 60s, and a lifetime of challenges. Would I let my family's betrayal be what finally took me down? "I'm adjusting my approach to certain relationships," I said carefully. Later that day, I met Judith, my oldest friend, for lunch at our favorite cafe in Back Bay. Unlike me, Judith had never remarried after losing her husband. "Men are like desserts," she'd once told me. "Wonderful treats, but not necessary for survival." She listened without interruption as I detailed the past month's events, her fork suspended midway to her mouth when I described the knitted dolls incident. "And the diamond?" she finally asked. "Still inside the doll, as far as I know. They didn't even examine the gift closely enough to find it." Judith set down her utensils. "Eleanor, this isn't just disrespect. They're systematically maneuvering to control your assets. Richard mentioned a family trust. Of course he did. Once your properties are in a trust he controls, you'll be receiving an allowance from your own money." She leaned forward. "Has he asked for power of attorney yet?" I nodded. 3 times since Christmas. I've been putting him off. "Thank God for that, at least." She reached for my hand. "Eleanor, I've watched you give everything to that family. Your time, your money, your emotional energy. What exactly are you getting in return?" The question struck me like a physical blow. What was I getting? Certainly not respect, not consideration, not even basic gratitude. "They're my family," I said weakly. "No, they're people taking advantage of your gentle nature. There's a difference." On my way home, I stopped at a small neighborhood bank where James and I had kept a safe deposit box for decades. Inside were birth certificates, our marriage license, and James's collection of rare coins, things the family didn't know about. That evening, my grandson Thomas called. "Grandma, are you okay? You left the party so suddenly." His concern warmed something in me that had gone cold. "I'm fine, dear. Just tired. I heard Dad talking about the beach house. Are they really planning major renovations without asking you?" So Thomas had noticed. In a family of takers, he alone seemed troubled by their behavior. They seemed to have many plans I wasn't consulted on. There was a pause. "Grandma, I found something you should see. Dad left some papers in the printer at home. Financial statements. They don't look good." I gripped the phone tighter. "What kind of statements? Investment losses? Second mortgage notices? I think they may be counting on your assets to bail them out." As we talked, I pulled up my online banking. There had been 3 attempted logins from an unrecognized device in the past week. The pieces were falling into place. This wasn't just about a wedding venue or redecorating preferences. This was about desperation and opportunism disguised as family concern. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Amber holding those knitted dolls between 2 fingers, her face twisted in disdain. The diamond inside might have paid for her entire wedding. Had she bothered to look deeper than the surface? Perhaps it was time I stopped looking deeper for redeeming qualities in them as well. The next morning, I called Marcus Cooper, an estate attorney James had introduced me to years ago. He agreed to meet me for coffee that afternoon, his voice betraying surprise at my urgency. "Bring any financial documents you can," he advised. "And Eleanor, come alone." The cafe was quiet, tucked away on a side street. Marcus had aged since I'd last seen him, more white in his beard, deeper lines around his eyes, but his handshake was still firm, his gaze direct. "James would be troubled by what's happening," he said after I'd explained the situation. "James expected better from his son," I replied. Marcus spread the documents Thomas had sent me across the table, studying them through reading glasses. "These investment losses are substantial, plus a second mortgage, credit card debt. Richard is underwater financially. And I'm the life raft." "Precisely." Marcus looked up. "Eleanor, I've seen this scenario play out dozens of times. It rarely ends well for the parent. What would you advise? Protect yourself. Immediately." He leaned forward. "Where are your assets currently?" I detailed my holdings: the Boston brownstone, the Cape Cod beach house, investment accounts, insurance policies. Marcus took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "Who has access to these accounts?" "No one but me." "Keep it that way." He set down his pen. "And the properties?" "Both are in my name alone." James insisted on that. Marcus nodded approvingly. "Smart man. Now, about this wedding. It's in September. At my beach house, without my meaningful consent." He sat back, considering. "You have options, legal options, such as, it's your property, Eleanor. You could refuse to host the wedding." I imagined the family drama, the accusations, the potential health consequences Dr. Matthews had warned about. That would create significant conflict. "Yes," Marcus agreed. "But there are other approaches, more definitive ones." That single word, definitive, resonated. For months, I'd been reacting to their maneuvers, always on the defensive. Perhaps it was time for a more decisive response. "I'm listening," I said. Later that afternoon, I visited my bank and spoke with the manager about the attempted account access. She recommended additional security measures, which I implemented immediately. At home, I found a message from Amber about final approval for the wedding flowers, an $18,000 expense she expected me to cover. Next to it was a brochure for another retirement community, this one even further from Boston, with Vanessa's neat handwriting. "More affordable option?" My phone rang. It was Thomas. "Grandma, I think you should know. Dad's having dinner with your financial advisor tomorrow. He mentioned something about consolidating Mom's investments for better returns." I thanked him for the information, then called Marcus back. "I've made my decision," I told him. "I'd like to explore that definitive option we discussed. Are you certain? Once we begin this process?" "I'm certain." I gazed out my window at the Boston skyline. It's time I stopped being a passenger in my own life. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept deeply and without interruption. In my dreams, James was there, nodding his approval as I finally stood my ground. "What exactly are you looking for?" Jennifer Maxwell asked, Her real estate portfolio spread across my dining room table. Her reputation as Boston's most discreet property agent had led Marcus to recommend her. A buyer who can close quickly and values privacy, I replied. For the Cape Cod property, she raised an eyebrow. Waterfront in that area typically sits on the market for... I understand the normal time frame. This situation is different. Jennifer studied my face, seeming to grasp what I wasn't explicitly stating. I know a few potential buyers who've been looking for exactly that location. Private sale could expedite things considerably. How quickly? With the right buyer and proper motivation? Perhaps 45 days. Maybe less. I nodded. Perfect. That afternoon, I drove to Cape Cod alone. The beach house stood as it always had, a weathered gray cedar shake exterior that had witnessed 4 decades of family history. Inside, I walked from room to room, mentally cataloging memories. Richard learning to swim in the cove below, Thomas building elaborate sand castles at age 6, Amber's 16th birthday bonfire on the beach. In the master bedroom, I found more evidence of their plans: fabric swatches for new curtains, paint samples taped to the wall, a floor plan showing my personal space reconceived as the bridal suite. On the bedside table, a stack of wedding magazines had replaced my books. I sat on the porch swing James had built, watching waves crash against the shore. This had been our sanctuary. Now it felt like contested territory. My phone buzzed with a text from Richard. Mom, need to discuss important financial strategy. Dinner tomorrow? Bringing Vanessa and our advisor. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Jennifer. I'd like to proceed with listing the property. Immediately. 2 days later, Jennifer called with news. I have interested parties. A well-known tech entrepreneur and his wife. They're prepared to offer full asking price with a 40-day close if we can keep this entirely private. Tell them yes, I said without hesitation. Jennifer arranged for professional photographers to document the property the following day. I spent that evening removing personal items I couldn't bear to part with: photo albums, James's collection of maritime books, the small wooden box containing some of his ashes. As I was leaving, Amber's wedding planner arrived, clearly startled to find me there. Mrs. Thompson, we weren't expecting you. She clutched her tablet nervously. I'm just measuring for the tent placement. No need, I said calmly. The wedding plans have changed. Changed? But Amber hasn't mentioned... She doesn't know yet. I drove home with a strange lightness in my chest. For the first time in months, I was taking action rather than simply responding to others' decisions about my life. The sensation was both foreign and familiar, like rediscovering a part of myself that had been dormant. That night, over dinner with Thomas at my Boston home, I shared my decision. You're selling the beach house? His fork paused midway to his mouth. Before the wedding? Yes. He set down his utensils. They're going to lose their minds. Probably, I agreed. But it's my property to sell. Thomas was quiet for a moment. You know what's strange, Grandma? I think I respect you more right now than I ever have, and I've always respected you. His words brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Thank you, Thomas. What about afterward? They'll be angry, especially Dad. I met his gaze steadily. I'm not responsible for managing their emotions. I've finally realized that. As Thomas helped clear the dishes, he asked the question I'd been anticipating. Is this because of what Amber said? About the gift? I considered my answer carefully. It's because of what that moment revealed, about how they see me, about what they value. I rinsed a plate, watching water spiral down the drain. Some realizations can't be unlearned, Thomas. Later, alone in my study, I received an email from Jennifer with the formal purchase offer. The closing date was set for exactly 1 week before Amber's wedding day. I signed the documents electronically, feeling the weight of decades lift from my shoulders with each click. Whatever storm was coming, I was ready to weather it. The first indication that my family had discovered my plans came at 11:23 p.m. when my phone erupted with notifications. 3 missed calls from Richard, 7 text messages from Amber, the last one in all capitals. Please tell me this isn't true! I silenced my phone and slept better than I had in months. Morning brought Richard to my doorstep, still in his running clothes, face flushed with exertion and anger. What the hell are you doing? He demanded as soon as I opened the door. Good morning to you too, Richard. I stepped aside to let him in. Coffee? I don't want coffee. I want an explanation. Jennifer Maxwell? A private sale? What were you thinking? I poured myself a cup, adding cream with deliberate slowness. I was thinking it's time to simplify my life. By selling our family beach house weeks before Amber's wedding, the wedding that's supposed to happen there, my beach house, I corrected gently. And yes, Richard ran a hand through his thinning hair. You can't do this. We've sent invitations, made deposits. The venue can't be changed now. Then I suggest you start looking for alternatives. His face darkened. This is about the birthday party, isn't it? Amber's comment? She was just joking. Mother, you're overreacting. I sipped my coffee, studying my son over the rim of the cup. This man who looked so much like James physically had none of his integrity. This isn't about one comment, Richard. This is about a pattern of behavior, yours included. What are you talking about? The retirement community brochures, the financial strategy meetings you've arranged without me, the unauthorized attempts to access my accounts. His expression flickered. Those were for your benefit. You're getting older. I'm old, not incapable. I set down my cup. And I'm certainly not senile, though I imagine that narrative might serve your purposes. Richard's facade cracked. Mom, please, I'm in trouble. The Westridge development failed. Investors are threatening lawsuits. If I don't find capital, so this is about money. I felt strangely calm. Not about concern for my welfare. It's both, he insisted, but his eyes couldn't meet mine. How much do you need? His answer, a number with too many zeros, confirmed my suspicions. This wasn't about helping me. This was about saving himself. The sale closes in 5 weeks, I told him. The proceeds will go into accounts you don't have access to. You do this to your own family? To Amber? To me? I walked to the window, looking out at the city I'd called home for nearly 8 decades. You've left me no choice, Richard. You've shown me exactly how much respect you have for my autonomy, my wishes, and my place in this family. That's not fair. I turned to face him. Isn't it? When was the last time any of you asked what I wanted instead of telling me what I needed? His silence was answer enough. That afternoon, Amber arrived, her eyes red-rimmed, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Logan is freaking out, she said without preamble. His parents are mortified. Do you have any idea how this makes us look? The old Eleanor would have comforted her, apologized, found a way to smooth things over. But that woman was gone, replaced by someone who finally recognized her own worth. About as bad as I looked when you mocked my gift in front of everyone, I replied calmly. Amber flinched. That was different. I was just being honest. So am I. The house is being sold. The wedding needs a new venue. But why? Why would you do this to me? I studied my granddaughter, beautiful, privileged, and utterly blind to anyone's reality but her own. I'm not doing anything to you, Amber. I'm doing something for myself. As she left, storming out with theatrical indignation, I felt no satisfaction, only a quiet certainty that I was finally standing in my own truth after decades of accommodation. That evening, I received an unexpected visitor. Logan, Amber's fiancé. Mrs. Thompson, he began awkwardly. I wanted to talk to you directly, without interference. I invited him in, curious about this unprecedented solo visit. I came to apologize, he said, surprising me, for laughing at your gift. It was disrespectful. I studied him, searching for the manipulation behind the apology. Why now? He looked down at his expensive shoes. Because I'm starting to see things differently. The way everyone's reacting to your decision. It's shown me a side of this family I hadn't noticed before. For the first time, I glimpsed something genuine in this young man. A recognition, perhaps, of the world he was marrying into. Careful observation is an undervalued skill, I told him. He nodded, standing to leave. For what it's worth, Mrs. Thompson, I think I understand why you're doing this. After he left, I called Marcus to confirm the sale was proceeding as planned. Whatever emotional hurricanes might be brewing in my family, my course was set. 3 weeks before the scheduled closing date, Jennifer Maxwell called with unexpected news. The buyers want to accelerate the timeline. They're offering an additional $50,000 if we can close in 10 days. I hesitated only briefly. Tell them yes. This development would place the sale completion 3 weeks before Amber's wedding date, creating an even more urgent crisis. I understood the potential fallout, but proceeded anyway. That evening, I invited Thomas to dinner at my Boston home, knowing I needed one ally in the family chaos that would surely follow. The sale is happening sooner, I told him over roast chicken, his favorite since childhood. Next week, he set down his fork. That's decisive. It feels right. I studied my grandson's face. You're the only one I've told. Why me? Because you're the only one who sees me as a person rather than a resource. Thomas pushed his glasses up his nose, a gesture so reminiscent of James that my heart tightened. They're planning an intervention, you know. Dad, Mom, Amber, they think you're having some kind of breakdown. I almost laughed. Of course they do. It's easier to believe I'm mentally compromised than to accept I'm making conscious choices they don't like. What will you do? I considered the question. Stand my ground. Later that night, after Thomas left, I received a text from Richard. Family dinner tomorrow, 7 p.m. My house. Important matters to discuss. The trap was being laid. I replied with a simple, I'll be there, then called Marcus. They're planning an intervention, I told him. Likely to build a case that I'm not competent to manage my affairs. Are you sure you want to attend? His concern was evident. Absolutely. Running would only strengthen their narrative. The following evening, I dressed with particular care, a tailored navy suit James had always admired, pearl earrings, light makeup. The woman in the mirror looked resolute, clear-eyed, not remotely confused or incompetent. Richard's Wellesley home was illuminated like a stage set when I arrived. Through the window, I could see them assembled. Richard pacing nervously, Vanessa arranging food no one would eat, Amber dabbing at her eyes with theatrical precision. Only Thomas, standing slightly apart, seemed uncomfortable with the performance. I rang the doorbell. Richard opened it, his welcoming smile not reaching his eyes. Mom, thank you for coming. We've been so worried. The living room fell silent as I entered. On the coffee table lay printouts of retirement communities, elder law attorneys' business cards, and, most tellingly, blank power of attorney documents. Eleanor, Vanessa stepped forward, her voice dripping with manufactured concern. We're here because we love you. Are you? I set my purse down calmly. How interesting. Richard cleared his throat. Mom, we're concerned about your recent decisions. They seem impulsive, potentially self-destructive. You mean selling my own property? Exactly, Amber interjected. 3 weeks before my wedding. It's cruel, and it makes no sense. I surveyed the room. These people who claim to love me while systematically dismissing my agency. I disagree. It makes perfect sense to remove myself from situations where I'm not respected. Richard exchanged glances with Vanessa. Mom, stress and age can affect judgment. We're just suggesting some protections. For whom, Richard? Me or your financial interests? The room went still. Thomas, from his corner position, couldn't suppress a small smile. I know about the failed development, I continued. The second mortgage, the credit card debt. I know you've been trying to access my accounts. Richard's face drained of color. Who told you? Does it matter? What matters is that you thought you could manipulate me instead of simply asking for help. Vanessa stepped forward. Eleanor, you're clearly confused. I've never been clearer, I interrupted. The house will be sold next week. The proceeds will remain under my control. And this performance you've arranged, it only confirms I've made the right decision. I stood, gathering my purse. I've scheduled appointments with my doctor and my attorney tomorrow. Both will document my competency in case any of you are considering legal challenges. As I walked to the door, Amber called after me, her voice breaking. What about my wedding? I turned back one last time. What about my dignity? The silence that followed me out was more satisfying than any further argument could have been. The day of the closing arrived with perfect late summer weather. Clear skies, gentle breeze, the kind of day that had always made the beach house feel like heaven on earth. I signed the final papers in Marcus's office, his presence providing both legal security and moral support. Congratulations, he said as I completed the last signature. The wire transfer will be complete by end of day. I felt no triumph, only a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. 40 years of memories now belonged to someone else, but my future remained firmly in my own hands. As we left his office, Marcus hesitated. Eleanor, have you given any thought to where you'll live long-term? I have. Actually, I smiled at his surprised expression. I'm not without plans, Marcus. That evening, Thomas came for dinner at my Boston home. I handed him an envelope over dessert. What's this? He asked, opening it to find a check with his name. A gift for your photography business. His eyes widened at the amount. Grandma, this is too much. I can't. You can and you will. I reached for his hand. James always said you had an artist's eye. He would have wanted to support your passion. Thomas blinked rapidly. Does Dad know about this? No, and it's not his business. I sipped my tea. You're the only one who saw me. Thomas, the only one who bothered to look beneath the surface. Later that night, as expected, my phone exploded with notifications. The family grapevine had clearly spread news of the completed sale. Richard's voicemail was coldly professional. Mother, I'm disappointed you've proceeded with this reckless action. We need to discuss damage control immediately. Vanessa's message dripped with martyrdom. Eleanor, I hope you realize what you've done to this family. Amber is absolutely devastated. Amber herself sent 16 increasingly hysterical text messages, culminating in, "My life is ruined and it's your fault." I silenced my phone and slept peacefully. The following morning, I met with a real estate agent. Not Jennifer this time, but a woman specializing in properties for active seniors. We toured 3 condominiums in upscale buildings, all with security, amenities, and proximity to cultural attractions I'd long neglected. "This one has the best views," she said, as we stood in a corner unit on the 15th floor of a building in Cambridge, overlooking the Charles River. "And the security is exceptional, private elevator access only." I studied the space, open, light-filled, completely unlike my current home with its dark wood and historical constraints. "It's perfect." By afternoon, I'd made an offer. By evening, it was accepted. Richard arrived unannounced at my door just after 8 p.m., his expression thunderous. "You're buying property without consulting me? After everything that's happened?" I let him in, maintaining a calm I didn't entirely feel. "I wasn't aware I needed your consultation to choose my own home. That's not—" He stopped, visibly gathering himself. "Mother, I'm trying to help you." "No, Richard, you're trying to control me. There's a difference." He paced my living room, agitation evident in every movement. "The family is in crisis. Amber's wedding is in shambles. Logan's parents are threatening to withdraw their support entirely. Those sound like problems for Amber and Logan to solve. How can you be so cold? This is your granddaughter's future." I studied my son, this man I'd raised, whose moral compass had somehow swung so far from true north. "Richard, when exactly did my existence become solely about supporting everyone else's dreams without regard for my own? That's not fair, isn't it? You planned to move me to a retirement home without my consent. You attempted to access my accounts without permission. You arranged an intervention based on fabricated concerns about my mental competence, all because I made decisions you didn't like." He had no answer for this. "The new property closes in 3 weeks," I told him. "I'll be downsizing considerably. You and Vanessa should come select any furniture or items you'd like before I arrange for estate sales. You're really going through with all this." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "Yes, Richard, I really am." After he left, I stood at my window watching the city lights, feeling a strange mixture of grief and determination. I was losing my family, or perhaps more accurately, discovering they had never truly been mine to begin with. My phone chimed with a text from Thomas. "Just heard about Cambridge. Proud of you, Grandma. Need help packing?" At least one bridge remained intact among the burning ruins of my family relationships. It would have to be enough. Logan called off the engagement, Thomas told me over coffee at a small cafe near the Boston Common. September had arrived with unseasonable warmth, the park still green and vibrant around us. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I hadn't wanted Amber to experience heartbreak. His parents got spooked by the family instability. That's what they called it. Thomas stirred his coffee absently. "Amber's devastated. Hasn't left her apartment in 3 days." I felt a twinge of guilt, quickly replaced by resolve. "This is unfortunate, but not entirely unpredictable. Dad's blaming you entirely." Of course he is." I watched a young couple pushing a stroller along the path outside. "It's easier than examining his own role in all this." Thomas hesitated. "Would you consider talking to Amber? Not to apologize, but just, I think she's really struggling." I considered his request. "I'll think about it." Later that day, I received a surprising call from Judith. "I ran into Amber at Bloomingdale's," she said without preamble. "She was returning wedding gifts. Eleanor, she looks terrible. Thomas mentioned she's taking the breakup hard. It's more than that. She looked broken, not just sad. When she saw me, she burst into tears right there in housewares. This image, my granddaughter crying among expensive tableware she'd no longer need, stirred something in me I'd thought permanently hardened. After ending the call, I sat for a long time in my study, looking at old photographs. Amber as a toddler, holding my hand at the beach. Amber at 10, proudly showing me her science fair ribbon. Amber at 16, rolling her eyes at something I'd said, but smiling despite herself. When had things changed? When had the affectionate child become the entitled adult who could publicly humiliate her grandmother without a second thought? And was I any better, using my power, financial and otherwise, to punish her in the most public way possible? These questions haunted me as I packed books into boxes, preparing for my move. The Cambridge condominium would be ready in 2 weeks. My Boston home had already attracted interest from several potential buyers, though I hadn't officially listed it yet. My phone rang again. It was Richard. "Mom, I know things have been difficult, but I'm asking you, professionally and personally, to call Amber. She's in a dangerous place emotionally. Is she getting help?" His hesitation spoke volumes. "She doesn't want to see a therapist. Says it would be admitting defeat. So like our family, appearance over actual healing. I'll reach out," I promised. That evening, I texted Amber, "Would you like to meet for coffee tomorrow?" Her response came instantly. "Why? So you can gloat?" "No, so I can listen." After a long pause, "Fine. Cafe Nero on Newbury, 2 p.m. I arrived early, selecting a quiet corner table. Amber appeared precisely at 2, dark sunglasses covering half her face despite the cloudy day. When she removed them, her red-rimmed eyes and pallid complexion confirmed Judith's assessment. "You look awful," I said, the words escaping before I could soften them. To my surprise, she laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "Thanks, Grandma. Always the straight shooter. I'm sorry, that was unkind, but accurate." She stirred her untouched coffee. "Logan's already dating someone else. Instagram official yesterday, 3 weeks after canceling our wedding." I winced. "I truly am sorry about that. Are you?" Her eyes met mine, challenging. "You sold the house where we were supposed to get married. You knew what would happen." "I knew there would be consequences," I acknowledged. "I didn't specifically predict this one." "Why did you do it? Was humiliating me really worth destroying your relationship with the entire family?" The question hung between us, demanding honesty rather than platitudes. "How did you feel when you opened my gift at your party?" I asked instead. She looked away. "I don't know what that has to—" "Please answer the question, Amber." She sighed. "Fine. I thought it looked homemade and cheap. I was embarrassed because everyone else had given me expensive things. And did you consider how I might feel when you said that publicly?" A flush spread across her pale cheeks. "Not really. Not until later. That's my answer then. I was tired of not being considered, of having my feelings, my preferences, my very autonomy treated as irrelevant to everyone else's plans." Amber's eyes filled with tears. "So you deliberately ruined my wedding to teach me a lesson?" "No. I sold my property because I finally recognized it had become more important to all of you than I was." I reached across the table, not quite touching her hand. "The house was a symbol, Amber. The real issue was that none of you saw me as a person anymore, just an asset to be managed, an obstacle to be navigated, or a resource to be exploited." She didn't respond, but for the first time, I sensed she was truly listening. "Did you know there was a diamond inside one of those knitted dolls?" I asked softly. "My grandmother's diamond from her engagement ring. I'd reset it for you." Her head snapped up. "What?" "If you'd looked beyond the surface, beyond what you immediately dismissed as cheap, you would have found something of genuine value." Tears spilled over. "I threw them away," she whispered. "The dolls. I threw them in the trash that night. The finality of it, the diamond lost forever, just like the relationships I'd once cherished, settled over us both. I think we've all thrown away things more valuable than we realized," I said finally. We parted without resolution, the air between us still heavy with hurt and missed connections. But something had shifted, a crack in the wall of mutual resentment that might, with time, allow light to filter through. My new Cambridge condominium felt like a fresh start. Floor-to-ceiling windows filled the space with light that my old brownstone had always lacked. Modern amenities replaced creaking stairs and temperamental plumbing. The building's security provided peace of mind I hadn't even realized I was missing. 2 weeks after moving in, I invited Thomas for dinner. He arrived with a bottle of wine and a small wrapped package. "Housewarming gift," he explained, handing me both. "Nothing expensive or fancy, just something I thought you'd appreciate." Inside the wrapping was a framed photograph he'd taken, the beach house at sunset, waves crashing against the rocks below, windows glowing with warm light from within. "It's beautiful," I said, genuinely moved. "When did you take this?" "Last summer." I always thought it captured something essential about the place. He glanced around my new home. "You seem lighter here, Grandma. Less burdened." "I feel lighter." I hung the photograph on a wall where morning light would illuminate it. It's strange how letting go of possessions can feel like gaining something rather than losing it. Over dinner, Thomas shared news. His photography business was gaining traction, with 2 gallery showings scheduled for winter. The investment I'd made was already bearing fruit. "Dad doesn't know yet," he admitted, "about the money or the career change. I'm waiting for the right moment." Sometimes the right moment never arrives, Thomas. Sometimes you have to create it. After he left, I sat alone in my new living room, watching city lights twinkle across the Charles River. My phone remained quiet. No frantic texts from Amber, no manipulative calls from Richard, no guilt-inducing messages from Vanessa. The silence felt both lonely and liberating. The following morning, I had my regular checkup with Dr. Matthews. "Your numbers are significantly improved," he noted, reviewing my chart. "Blood pressure down, stress markers reduced. Whatever changes you've made, they're working. I've simplified my life considerably. Sometimes that's the best medicine." He closed my file. "How are things with your family?" "Complicated. Distant, but truthful, finally." He nodded, understanding. "And how does that feel?" I considered the question. Like removing a splinter that's been festering for years, painful, but necessary for healing. Later that week, I received an unexpected visitor, Vanessa. She arrived unannounced, dressed in the impeccable style I'd always associated with her. But something about her demeanor seemed different, less certain, more vulnerable. "Your new place is lovely," she said after an awkward greeting. "Very you, thank you. Would you like some tea?" We sat in uncomfortable silence until she finally spoke again. "Eleanor, I owe you an apology. Of all the things I'd expected, this wasn't one of them. Richard and I are separating," she continued before I could respond. "The financial issues, the stress of everything, it's been building for years. I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" Her smile was sad, but knowing. "We haven't exactly been kind to you." "Family relationships are complex," I offered neutrally. Vanessa looked down at her perfectly manicured hands. "When you sold the beach house, it forced a lot of things into the open. Richard's financial problems, our marriage issues, Amber's relationship with Logan, which was apparently shakier than any of us realized. Sometimes a single action can reveal truth on multiple levels." "Yes," she met my eyes directly. "I want you to know that the retirement community brochures, the suggestions about power of attorney, those were primarily my initiatives. Richard went along with it, but I was the one pushing." This admission surprised me. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I've been doing a lot of thinking about the future. About aging, about my own mother, who I treat exactly the way I treated you." She blinked rapidly. "It's not a flattering realization." As she left, Vanessa paused at the door. "For what it's worth, Eleanor, I think you did the right thing. It just took me a while to see it." That evening I called Judith and shared the unexpected visit. "People can surprise you," she said. "Sometimes even pleasantly. It feels like the beginning of something, rather than the end." "Maybe it is," Judith suggested. "Not a restoration of what was, that's gone forever, but perhaps the foundation of something new, something more honest." Later, alone with my thoughts, I found myself reflecting on the knitted dolls and the diamond lost with them. Perhaps the same was true of family relationships. Sometimes what appeared broken beyond repair could be rebuilt in a different form, possibly stronger for having been broken and mended. The diamond was gone. The beach house belonged to someone else. The family I'd once known had fractured irreparably. But in their place, something else was emerging. Relationships based on truth rather than obligation, respect rather than manipulation, authenticity rather than appearance. It wasn't what I'd expected. But then, the most meaningful transformations rarely follow predictable paths. On a crisp October morning, I received an email from Richard, the first direct communication since our confrontation weeks earlier. The subject line read simply, "Coffee?" We met at a neutral location, a small cafe equidistant between our homes. Richard arrived punctually, dressed more casually than I was accustomed to seeing him. Jeans and a sweater instead of his usual tailored suit. "You look well, Mom," he said after ordering for both of us. "The new place must agree with you." It does. I studied my son's face, noting new lines of strain around his eyes. Vanessa mentioned you're separating. He nodded. It's been coming for a long time. The financial issues just accelerated the inevitable. I'm sorry. Are you? For your pain? Yes. For the end of a relationship that wasn't working? No. Richard smiled faintly. Always direct. Dad would be proud of how you've handled all this. The mention of James caught me off guard. I'd like to think so. Our coffee arrived, creating a natural pause in the conversation. Richard added cream to his cup with methodical precision. I've had to declare personal bankruptcy, he said finally. The Westridge development failure was worse than I initially admitted. More investors, bigger losses. I suspected as much. Yes, you always were observant. He met my gaze directly. I should have just asked for help instead of everything else. Yes, you should have. Would you have helped if I'd been honest from the beginning? I considered the question carefully. I would have listened. I might have helped, with conditions. But we'll never know now, will we? The weight of missed opportunities hung between us. Richard broke the silence first. I've taken a position with a small nonprofit legal center, fraction of my former salary, but surprisingly fulfilling. That's a significant change, necessary change. He sipped his coffee. I'm staying with Thomas temporarily. He's been remarkably supportive. He's a good man, better than either of us deserve. Richard smiled at this truth. Apparently he's been building a photography business on the side for years. He's quite talented. He is. I left it at that, not mentioning my financial support. Look, Mom. Richard set down his cup. I'm not here to ask for money or forgiveness or anything, really. I just wanted to acknowledge that I handled everything badly, catastrophically badly. Thank you for saying that. I don't expect things to go back to how they were. Too much has happened. He hesitated. But I'd like to start something new, if you're willing. I studied my son, this flawed, struggling man who had caused me so much pain, but who still, despite everything, remained my child. I'm willing to try, I said finally. With boundaries, of course. Relief softened his features. That's more than fair. As we prepared to leave, Richard asked about Amber. Have you spoken with her recently? Not since our coffee meetup last month. He nodded. She's been through a lot. The canceled wedding, Logan's very public new relationship, losing her job. It's been a perfect storm. Is she getting help? I asked again. Finally, yes. Thomas convinced her to see someone. It seems to be helping. Outside the cafe, fall leaves swirled around us in the brisk wind. As we prepared to part ways, Richard reached out awkwardly for a hug, something he hadn't done in years. I allowed it, feeling the unfamiliar contours of this new relationship we were tentatively building. I miss the beach house, he admitted quietly. Not for the property value or as a wedding venue, just the memories. I do too, I said. But memories don't require ownership to be preserved. Back at my condominium, I found myself pulling out old photo albums. Images of decades at the beach house filled page after page. Birthdays, Thanksgivings, ordinary weekends made extraordinary by simple togetherness. I selected several photographs from Richard's childhood, building sandcastles, learning to swim, flying kites on the beach. I had them professionally framed and sent to his new apartment with a simple note. The most valuable assets can't be sold or transferred. They live within us. That evening, I received a text from Amber. Found something I think belongs to you. Can I bring it over tomorrow? She arrived the following afternoon, carrying a small paper bag. Her appearance had improved since our last meeting. Some color back in her cheeks, her posture less defeated. Nice place, she commented, looking around my new home. It suits you. Thank you. Would you like a tour? After showing her around, we settled in the living room, autumn sunlight streaming through the windows. I found these, Amber said, reaching into the bag and carefully withdrawing the knitted dolls I'd made for her birthday. They were in a box of things I'd set aside before. Everything happened. I took them gently, surprised by the emotion that welled up at seeing my handiwork again. I thought they were gone. I almost threw them away that night, she admitted. But something stopped me. She paused. You said there was a diamond? Yes, inside the female doll, in the heart area. With careful fingers, Amber examined the doll, finding the small, nearly invisible opening I'd created. She gasped softly as she extracted the diamond, a 1-carat stone that had been in our family for generations. It's beautiful, she whispered, All this time, sometimes value isn't immediately apparent, I said quietly. Sometimes you have to look deeper. Amber closed her hand around the diamond, tears filling her eyes. I don't deserve this. It was a gift. Gifts aren't about deserving. She placed the diamond and dolls on the coffee table between us. I can't take it, not after everything. But I needed you to know I found it, that I finally understood what you were trying to give me. As she prepared to leave, Amber hesitated by the door. I'm in therapy now. It's helping me see things differently. About myself, about you, about everything, really. I'm glad. I'm not ready to talk about it all yet, she continued. But maybe someday? I'll be here, I promised. After she left, I held the knitted dolls, faded now, slightly squashed from their time in storage, but intact. The diamond lay beside them, catching the light in prismatic bursts. Some gifts, once rejected, can never be offered again in the same way. But perhaps new gifts, different ones, could take their place. I carefully returned the diamond to its hiding place inside the doll. Some treasures needed to remain hidden until the right moment, or the right recipient, came along. 1 year to the day after Amber's fateful birthday party, I hosted a small gathering in my Cambridge condominium. The guest list was selective. Thomas and his new partner Emily, Richard, alone but seeming content with that status, Judith, Marcus, and, most surprisingly, Amber, who arrived last, bearing a bouquet of fall flowers. Happy housewarming, she said, kissing my cheek. Belated, I know. My home, fully settled now, reflected my new life. Gone were the heavy antiques and somber paintings from the brownstone. In their place, comfortable modern furniture, vibrant artwork, some of it Thomas's photography, and large windows that welcomed light rather than shutting it out. Over dinner, conversation flowed more easily than I could have imagined possible a year ago. Richard spoke about his nonprofit work with genuine passion. Thomas shared news of an upcoming gallery showing. Amber, quieter than her former self but more authentically present, mentioned her return to graduate school. Art history, she explained. What I was studying before I got distracted by everything else. After dessert, Thomas raised his glass. To Grandma Eleanor, who taught us all that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, and that true value isn't always visible on the surface, added Amber, meeting my eyes with a small smile. Later, as the gathering wound down, Amber pulled me aside to a quiet corner of the living room. I have something for you, she said, reaching into her purse and withdrawing a small box. Inside was a pendant, a simple silver setting holding a familiar diamond. I know you said I could keep it, she explained quickly, but I had it reset for you. I thought you should wear it now, rather than saving it for someone else's future. I lifted the pendant, watching as it caught the light. It's beautiful. I've been thinking a lot about that day, Amber continued, her voice softer, about why I reacted the way I did. My therapist helped me see that I've spent my whole life chasing approval through material things, appearances, status. I never learned to recognize real value. We teach what we know, I said gently. Your parents raised you to prioritize appearances. Yes, but I'm an adult now. I'm responsible for my own values. She touched the pendant. When you sold the beach house, I was devastated, but it forced me to confront a lot of things about myself, about what I actually want versus what I thought I was supposed to want. And what do you actually want? She smiled, a genuine expression I hadn't seen in years. To create something meaningful, to develop expertise in something that matters to me, to build relationships based on mutual respect rather than utility. Those are worthy goals. They're your goals, Amber said. I just never noticed before. As guests departed, Richard lingered, helping to clear dishes despite my protests. Let me do this one small thing, he insisted. Consider it symbolic restitution. In the kitchen, away from others, he spoke candidly. I met with the new owners of the beach house last month. This surprised me. Really? Why? Closure, maybe. Or masochism. He shrugged. They've changed everything. Different colors, different furniture, different landscaping. It doesn't even look like our place anymore. Did that bother you? Strangely, no. It helped me see that what I've been missing isn't the house itself, but what it represented. Family, stability, connection. He rinsed a plate, handing it to me to dry. Things I nearly destroyed chasing financial security. We all make mistakes, Richard. Some bigger than others. He smiled ruefully. But I'm learning. Slowly. After everyone had gone, I stood on my balcony overlooking the Charles River, the new diamond pendant cool against my skin. City lights reflected on the water's surface, creating rippling patterns of illumination against darkness. The beach house was gone. The family I'd once known had been irreparably altered. The relationships I'd taken for granted had been broken, examined, and partially rebuilt on new foundations. Nothing was the same. Everything was truer. In the reflection of my balcony door, I caught a glimpse of myself, straight-backed, clear-eyed, uncompromised. The woman looking back at me was neither the accommodating grandmother who'd knitted dolls with a hidden treasure, nor the wounded matriarch who'd sold a house to make a point. She was someone new, someone who had discovered, at 79, that boundaries weren't selfish, but necessary. That respect couldn't be purchased with property or possessions. That true family survived the stripping away of pretense and performance. I touched the diamond at my throat, a stone that had traveled a complex journey from rejection to return. Like me, it had been dismissed based on its initial presentation. Like me, its true value had eventually been recognized. Perfect timing, Judith had said when I called to tell her about Amber's gift. You needed to wear that diamond, not hide it away for someone else's future. She was right. The time for hiding my opinions, my needs, my authentic self, was over. From my balcony, I could see clear across the river to Boston's skyline. Somewhere over there stood my old brownstone, now occupied by a young family building their own memories within its walls. Further away, the beach house hosted new gatherings, new traditions, new stories. And here, in this unexpected chapter of my life, I was finally writing my own story, not as supporting character in someone else's narrative, but as the protagonist of my own. The diamond caught the light as I turned back toward my home. Not everything precious had been lost in the upheaval of the past year. Some treasures had been recovered, others, more valuable still, had been discovered for the first time. It wasn't the ending I'd expected. It was better, harder, clearer, more honest. It was mine. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.